Give me a second. I have to assign the interpreter. Okay, let's see. Yeah. My God, slide finish. Okay, I'm going to play the video. Oh, yeah, I want to confirm that this is the video. Please, if you can help me. Is it right? Yeah. So should I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's go.
Not the video though.
Yeah, not that video.
No.
Not all. John's talking about the opening video that's been playing for every session so far, the, welcome and wait for people to join. This is the one that I sent you the email of the run of show, and it's supposed to be kind of like halfway through the presentation for this session.
Okay, so let's see.
Sorry, Jana. Should we pass the same video as always? We're transmitting before all the sessions.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen right now.
We have no sound on the video.
Oh, yeah.
morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the closing session for the International Adolescent Health Association, SPAJ, and ORASCONO 12th World Congress on Adolescent Health, meeting the challenge of global change. It has been a great meeting, and it's been a great honor to co-chair this meeting with Mary Carmen Calle. It is a meeting that set records for attendance, both for young people and for older people's participation. This last session in the meeting is being co-sponsored by the World Health Organization's Partnership for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health, and is also being live cast on the IAAH YouTube channel. We will hear from some high-level speakers about the opportunities to work together to improve adolescent health in the coming years. And I want to thank all of those of you on this broadcast and in the room and elsewhere who've worked to help and participated in the meeting over the past few days and the past few years of planning. But before we go on to the PMNCH session, I give the floor to our president, Susan Sawyer, to present some very important awards for IAAH. Susan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Can you hear me okay?
We can, and we'll get you spotlighted in 1 second.
Terrific. This is an amazing meeting that we've just coming to an end of with. This is the closing session. So we're using the first part of this for IAAH awards, and I would really like to acknowledge the role of Bruce Dick, our immediate past president, who has chaired our awards committee, and also thank the committee members themselves. However, I particularly wish to thank those IAAH members who nominated colleagues for our inaugural Young Professionals Prize, and also for our high-level Founders Awards that we will be awarding first and then going on to Honorary Fellowship. So if I can get my screen moving. For our inaugural Young Professionals Prize, the recipients are, and I wish I had a drum roll available, Doctors Jason Nagata, Sophie Remwe-Gonzalez, and Natalie Yap, in recognition of their really remarkable efforts as a trio in establishing the International Association for Adolescent Health's Young Professionals Network. In their day jobs, Jason is an assistant professor of pediatrics at the University of California, San Francisco, United States, whose research focuses on the downstream health effects of adolescent and young adult behaviors to prevent disease later in adulthood, both locally and globally. Originally from Peru, Sophie Remwe-Gonzalez is an adolescent medicine specialist whose clinical work is now with disadvantaged adolescents in Texas. And Natalie Yap is a pediatric registrar in Melbourne, Australia, whose clinical and research interests focus on infectious diseases. This energetic trio established the IAAH Young Professionals Network that aims to provide diverse opportunities for early career professionals around the world to further develop their knowledge, skills, and experience in adolescent health. Leading the first 4 years of its operation, the nomination noted their ability to take and share leadership, assume and delegate responsibilities, and support each other and their YPN officers in running a global interdisciplinary community of future leaders in global adolescent health. Warmest congratulations, and my thanks personally as your president to Jason, Sophie, and Natalie. And I'm sure that as we are transition to new leadership following this meeting, that they would be delighted still to hear from interested students, trainees, and young professionals who might consider joining the Young Professionals Network. Next are our Founders Awards. These are conferred to an individual who has made an extraordinary contribution to the field of adolescent health nationally, regionally, or globally. We award one Founders Award each year, hence celebrating 4 awards now since our last World Congress. And I am really just delighted that these 4 awards span the global north and the global south and include those who have been leaders in clinical services, education and training, public policy, and research. Our first Founders Award goes to Dr. Maria Alicia Temesis, who was a trailblazer for adolescent health and medicine in the Philippines. Graduating from medicine in 1958, Dr. Temesis has spent over 50 years working in adolescent health. Clinically, her efforts contributed to the establishment of many new clinical services in the Philippines, including school health services. As an adolescent health advisor to the Department of Health in the Philippines, she helped bring prominence to adolescent issues. She pioneered the Adolescent Medicine Fellowship Training Program in the Philippine Children's Medical Center and has trained generations of clinicians. She founded the Society of Adolescent Medicine of the Philippines, known as SAMPI, in 1997, which publishes an academic journal on adolescent health and actively contributes to activities led by WHO and UNICEF, the Department of Health, and local and international NGOs. In the last decade, her efforts also helped establish the Philippine Society of Adolescent Medicine Specialists, which aims to elevate the quality of training and research on adolescent health. Now, believe it or not, in her 80s, she still runs a weekly teaching session known as the Temesis Hour and remains a source of deep inspiration for her many colleagues in SAMPI who supported this nomination. Our warmest congratulations to you, Alicia. And I was just thrilled to meet you when I spoke at your SAMPI webinar earlier this year. So I have a real warmth of congratulations and in recognition of your role. Thank you. Next is Dr. Christina Berg Kelly, considered the founder of adolescent medicine in Sweden. And Christina, it feels way too long since I've caught up with you in person, I must say. Returning to Sweden after early training in the States, Dr. Berg Kelly founded the Swedish Association for Adolescent Medicine in 1987, which functioned then, as now, to help build a critical mass for adolescent health and medicine in Sweden. Christina has trained numerous doctors and nurses through running annual courses in adolescent medicine in Sweden, and she has also been active in the European training network UTeach. Despite her official retirement 15 years ago, Dr. Berg Kelly recently worked with WHO in Africa and Eastern Europe to train a new generation of healthcare professionals, and she continues to advocate for the health of adolescents through a very active blog which features the latest research evidence in adolescent health. And I just love it that her email signature ends with the statement, "I strongly argue that e-cigarettes should be banned." Warmest congratulations, Christina. Our third Founders Award is a little bit closer to this region and goes to Dr. Sheila Campbell-Forrester, who over the past 40 years has played a remarkable role in helping to create the field of adolescent health in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. Beyond early clinical roles, subsequent positions included serving at the highest level in the Jamaican Ministry of Health as Chief Medical Officer, where she encouraged the development of policies and programs to benefit Jamaican adolescents. Dr. Campbell-Forrester has served as a consultant and technical advisor to PAHO, the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank, and various national governments in the Caribbean. He was the inaugural Caribbean Vice President of the International Association for Adolescent Health when our organization first was established in 1987, a role she held for many years. And she is also, much more recently, the inaugural President of the Caribbean Association for Adolescent Health that she helped to establish in 2019. I love that in response to my email yesterday to notify her of her award, she told me how much she's enjoyed being an adolescent all of her life. Warmest congratulations, Sheila. And our last of our four Founders Award goes to Professor George Patton, the somewhat more junior member of this highly illustrious group. George is a psychiatrist and epidemiologist who co-leads the Centre for Adolescent Health in Melbourne, Australia, a WHO collaborating centre for adolescent health. A professor of adolescent health research at the University of Melbourne and the head of adolescent health research at the Murdoch Children's Research Institute, Georgia's research has changed the very way we think about the significance of adolescence within the life course, including the effect of puberty on mental health, the intergenerational aspects of adolescence, and the role of schools on well-being. Globally, he is the most highly cited researcher in adolescent health. He has led multiple cohort studies where his expertise and longitudinal analyses have contributed to new understandings of the natural history of adolescent mental and substance use disorders, including self-harm, and the social determinants of health. More recent research has focused on injury, NCD risks, nutrition, sexual health, and gender norms. Following 2 series on adolescent health in The Lancet, he chaired the highly influential 2016 Lancet Commission on Adolescent Health and Wellbeing. Beyond many national advisory roles in Australia, he generously contributes to multiple international strategic activities. For example, this year, he was a senior advisor to UNICEF's 2021 State of the World's Children report on mental health. He's a member of the WHO Director General Strategic Technical Committee on Maternal, Newborn, Child and Adolescent Health, and contributed to making the case for a 2023 UN Summit on Adolescent Wellbeing. My warmest congratulations, George. Now, finally, our last award is Honorary Fellowship of IAAH, an award that is conferred at the discretion of the IAAH Council rather than by nomination. Honorary Fellowship is awarded to individuals who more typically are outside the field of adolescent health. And when I say more typically, this is only the 2nd time we have awarded Honorary Fellowship, with the first occasion being at our last World Congress in Delhi, India, where we awarded Honorary Fellowship to Ban Ki-moon, the then Secretary General of the UN. So we award these to individuals outside the field who have, as I said, made an extraordinary contribution to advancing adolescent health and wellbeing. This year, IAAH is awarding Honorary Fellowship to the Right Honourable Helen Clark, Board Chair of the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health, and former Prime Minister of New Zealand. So I am particularly pleased at our geographic closeness, Helen, with you being in New Zealand. This fellowship recognises her long-standing contribution to sustainable development, climate action, gender equality and women's leadership, peace and justice, transparency and accountability and governance, and health, including adolescent health and wellbeing. Helen Clark served 3 successive terms as Prime Minister of New Zealand between 1999 and 2008, during which she led policy debate on a wide range of economic, social, environmental and cultural issues, including sustainability and climate change. She has been in the position of many firsts, not least the United Nations Development Programme Administrator for 2 terms from 2009 to 2017, the first woman to lead that organisation. She was also the chair of the United Nations Development Group. She recently co-chaired the Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness and Response and a Lancet Commission on Child and Adolescent Health called A Future for the World's Children. Of more relevance to us in IAAH, perhaps, or more immediate relevance, Helen Clark has been highly supportive of adolescent health, as evident by her support of the PMNCH Adolescent and Youth Constituency and her role in the 2023 UN Global Summit for Adolescence. Helen, we are absolutely honoured and delighted that you're able to join us in person today to both accept this award and to participate in the final session that your partnership is so generously hosting with us. Warmest congratulations, and I invite you to take the floor.
Well, thank you, Susan. Buenos dias, everyone. Good evening to you in Europe, and good morning to Susan across the Tasman Sea from New Zealand. And thank you so much for awarding me the Honorary Fellowship from the International Association of Adolescent Health. And can I congratulate everyone else who's been honoured at this session today. During my many years, I should say decades, in public life, I've always worked on enhancing equity and inclusion and advocating for sustainable development and climate action. And I'm very aware of the impact that these issues have on adolescent health and well-being. I accept the Honorary Fellowship because of my role as Chair of PMNCH and championing the call to action for adolescence of PMNCH. Today, as we know, there's more than 1.2 billion adolescents aged between 10 and 19 years of age in our world, the largest adolescent population in history. And the only way to work with and for and address the needs of this generation is through multi-dimensional and multi-sectoral coordination. The PMNCH call to action emphasises the need for those multi-sectoral and inclusive approaches to adolescent well-being and the need to focus on adolescents and youth at the upcoming SDG Summit in 2023. That work, of course, has been led by many partners, and most significantly for us, by PMNCH's Adolescent and Youth Constituency, which is a vibrant platform of youth-led organisations, keeping us all to account and committing to achieving the SDGs and beyond. Over the last few years, PMNCH has mainstreamed meaningful adolescent and youth engagement within its own platform, including through the hashtag Adolescent 2030 campaign. And we're focused on empowering our members to move from jargon to real collaboration with young people in policies and programs. So let me accept the award on behalf of all those at PMNCH who've supported me on adolescent health and wellbeing issues. And I'm especially grateful to our young leaders who've committed their time and energy and passion to advocating for the call to action to be a lived reality for themselves and their communities. Thank you, International Association for Adolescent Health, for your continued support to this agenda, as well as to all our partners, the UN agencies, private sector, civil society, adolescents and youth, and many others who've joined PMNCH and me on this journey to advocate for adolescent health and well-being around our world. Thank you, Susan, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Helen. And I would also like to warmly congratulate all of our awardees. That ends our awards section, and I will now hand back to Kimberly Hibbert, or hand to Kimberly Hibbert, who is going to lead the next aspect of the program. Thank you all.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is watching this, as well as to our esteemed speakers. If I was in my own country, talking to my own people, I'd say something like, Wagwan, or how are you doing, right? Now, I hope you and your families are well and safe, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this event. My name is Kimberly Hibbert, and I'm a journalist from Kingston, Jamaica. I have the pleasure of moderating the closing ceremony led by PMNCH alongside IAAH, PAHO, and the Peruvian Society. We also want to thank the several UN agencies who are co-organizing this event with us: WHO, UNICEF, UNFPA, UNAIDS, World Food Programme, UN Women, UNESCO, and the UN Major Group for Children and Youth. The current generation of adolescents is the largest ever. There are currently 1.2 billion people aged 10 to 19. We know that over the past few decades, the health of adolescents has not improved to the same extent as the health of younger children. And that too, in many countries, investments have not been made as adolescents are assumed to be healthy. Yet, nearly 4,000 adolescents and young adults die each day from largely preventable conditions. How they passage through adolescence affects their future health as adults and the health of the next generation. In that sense, investing in adolescents is an investment in our community's futures. The last few days have reflected on or showed us how far we have come and how far we have to go. We have reviewed and discussed the progress we have made, challenges we are facing, and importantly, what and how we can or must do better. It has reinforced the power of partnerships, multi-sectorial responses, and the importance of working with one another, particularly in such hard times. COVID-19 is a stark reminder of the inequities that the world continues to wade through, and ones which we must tackle together. The disruption caused by the pandemic has now halted or even reversed progress made. A recent survey shows that substantial disruptions persist or even reversed progress made. Pardon me, a recent survey shows that substantial disruptions persist over 1 year into the pandemic, with about 90% of countries still reporting one or more disruptions to essential health services. Many adolescents are experiencing disruptions to their access to health, education, and preventive services, and the pandemic has further exacerbated the inequalities. The pandemic has reminded us that we are all linked together, and that vulnerable groups like women, children, and adolescents need our utmost attention. We cannot fall back on our commitments and must, as a community, step up and take action. Today, as we close this conference, I would like to remind everyone we will discuss this with a panel of international speakers from around the world. As we start, I am going to cite the call to action for adolescents by PMNCH and partners here. I call everyone to 1, engage and empower adolescents. 2, go beyond the health sector and launch a multi-sectorial response. 3, ensure nothing for us without us. On a housekeeping note, there will be no live question and answer, but please use the chat function to leave your comments, reflections, post questions to colleagues in the chat for discussion online. We now have an impressive closing panel here today, and I will welcome Stephanie Saki, Senior Advisor of Human Rights and Gender Equity, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. You can just wave, Stephanie. Nice. David Imbago, Chair of the PMNCH Adolescents and Youth Constituency PMNCH, and Strategic Partnerships and Programs Officer for the core group. That's David there. Sarah Baird, Professor of Global Health and Economics in the Department of Global Health at George Washington University and the Gage Quantitative Lead. And we have Sonia Cafe, Regional Health Advisor PAHO, on behalf of UNH6+ and EWEC LAC. And our last panelist is Maziko Matemvu, nice, Vice President, Young Feminist Network, and Vice Chair of Partner Engagement at the PMNCH Adolescents and Youth Constituency. Now to start with David. The IAAH focused this year on meeting the challenge of global change, requiring new responses, different actors, and wider alliances. What does this mean for adolescent well-being? And how can the adolescent well-being framework drive better action on priority areas for you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the question, Kimberly, and for the introduction. I think that first we need to understand what is the population that we're talking about and adolescents. And right now we have the largest cohort of adolescents that we have ever had in the entire story of humanity. We have 1.2 billion adolescents who are existing in this world right now. And it's 1.2 billion with a V. So I think that it's very important to remark how many people are impacted by what we're doing and what we're thinking about. And this population is likely to increase by 7% by 2030 to 1.3 billion. So it's a lot of people who we're talking about right now. That's the first idea that I wanted to share. And the second one, you're asking us how the well-being framework can actually drive better action for adolescents. And the first question that we should ask ourselves is, what is well-being? And that's what PMNCH did in 2019, leading the adolescents well-being framework with the support from different partners. And the definition of well-being for adolescents in this case is that well-being for this population is actually achieved when adolescents thrive and are able to achieve their full potential. So we first had to agree on what is well-being, and I am very happy that well-being is going beyond health in this case, because health, as important as it is not the only thing that adolescents need. So well-being goes beyond the only the health sector and includes education, includes safety, agency, resilience, and so on. And these domains of well-being have been largely affected by COVID-19. I mean, the pandemic has completely shifted how adolescents actually develop right now. And all of these areas, education, housing, and employment, have been affected by the pandemic. So going back to the well-being framework that was published in 2019, as I said before, health is only one of the domains, and I think that that's very important when we talk about multi-stakeholder and cross-sectoral collaboration. That health can drive definitely the agenda, but it's not the only thing that we're including here. So that's very important for us to be able to include actual people who are working on all the other things that are including well-being as part of the domains. Not only the domains are important here, but also, of course, gender, equity, and also rights are also included here as cross-sectoral and things that are underlying here for the development of well-being. Finally, what I wanted to also share, and I'm conscious of time, so I will wrap up now, is that based on the well-being framework, PMNCH developed actually a call to action for adolescents' health and well-being, which is led by member states, and we are very, very eager to engage with member states here, because we really think that governments are the ones who should be actually implementing these policies and in leading the response at the country level, and that all the things that we're talking about at the global level, conferences, resolutions, and so on, are actually implemented in the local level for adolescents to receive those benefits and things that are actually real and they are tangible. And finally, just to conclude, I just wanted to say that the well-being of young people is essential for delivering on the promise of leaving no one behind. And must be one of the goals that we work together to achieve the SDGs. We must work together harder along with adolescents and young people themselves to deliver a more equitable and inclusive world for these and for future generations. That's it from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Now over to you, Stephanie. Now more than ever, adolescents' well-being is critical for COVID-19 recovery. How is the US government responding to the needs of adolescents during this crisis to ensure the call for action for adolescents makes a difference on the ground?
Thanks, Kimberly. And thank you so much to the organizers for the opportunity to join on a topic that is really close to my heart. For a bit of context, I work in the Office of Global Affairs at HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services in the US. And that office is basically the diplomatic voice of the US government's Ministry of Health. So we are involved in helping to shape policy and work closely with bilateral and multilateral partners to implement that policy. It's a great moment to be having this conversation. So as others have said, and I won't repeat it, the COVID pandemic has really illuminated how connected the different parts of our lives are in a way that I think we all understood before intellectually, but I think has been brought home in a very visceral sense. The connections between health and the economy, between mental health and physical health, all of these areas, I think it's true for all of us probably here, and that very much includes adolescents. So in response to these challenges, the United States government is expanding existing investments and building out new priority areas to really live up to the moment that we are facing right now. As we look toward rebuilding, one of the things that we are talking about over and over again is that we must remember how closely entwined these areas remain in the lives of young people. So we cannot have effective education interventions without effective public health interventions. We cannot rebuild an economy without making sure that there's broad access to high quality services. So this idea, of course, of multi-sectoral programs is not new. Many of you may be familiar with the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief's DREAMS program, which has a goal of reducing new HIV infections among adolescent girls and young women in the highest HIV burden areas of 15 countries. So the DREAMS interventions go beyond the health sector to address the structural drivers that directly and indirectly increase girls' HIV risk. And those include poverty, gender inequality, sexual violence, lack of education, many others. There's been a lot of evaluation of the DREAMS program and some promising evidence about the effects on HIV incidence in those countries. So in 2021, the United States doubled the investment in DREAMS, and the US government plans to continue this increased level of support during 2022. While multi-sectoral programs for adolescents are not new for the US government, the moment does call for a bigger, bolder vision of how we can build back better in the wake of COVID-19. So in a very recent example of how we're building out this vision, last month, the White House Gender Policy Council released the first ever national strategy on gender equity and equality, which sets forth an aspirational vision that's both domestic and global in scope. So the strategy identifies 10 interconnected areas, priority areas, and I'm just going to list them because I think it's really important to hear the broad range: economic security, gender-based violence, health, education, justice and immigration, human rights and equality under the law, security and humanitarian relief, climate change, science and technology, and democracy, participation, and leadership. The strategy makes it clear that these priorities are inherently linked and must be tackled together. And now across the US government, we're working on developing implementation plans that lay out the steps each agency, including the one where I sit, will take to deliver on this vision, both in the US and around the world. So just to kind of close, all of us know, and I think are talking about, the particular risks faced by adolescents in many communities. Many of those risks have been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. But more than those risks, I think what we are trying to focus on in our interventions is the enormous promise that adolescents hold for the future of their countries and communities, and the fact that we need to invest in them rather than expecting them to deliver on that promise. We need to make investments that create the opportunities for them to realize their potential. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Stephanie. And through the course of this event, we have heard about the different challenges that adolescents have faced and continue to face in light of COVID-19. So Sarah, how can the global community, particularly the academic and research constituency, help in addressing these challenges on the ground?
Thank you very much for the question, Kimberly, and it's great to be with you today. As others have noted, adolescents have faced and continue to face multiple and intersecting challenges as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Service disruptions, particularly school closures, combined with financial stress, heightened vulnerability to age and gender-based violence, and social isolation have placed unprecedented pressure on young people, taking a toll on their physical and mental health. I believe the academic and research constituency has a key role to play to address these challenges, and let me just list a few places where I think they can play a role. First, researchers are well placed to bring the voices of young people to the ears of global decision makers through well-designed quantitative and qualitative primary data collection. Second, researchers can put data behind common perceptions. This can help bolster the evidence base when in fact these perceptions are true, as well as shed light on misinformation. Third, academics often work across diverse populations with research spanning context, countries, and even continents. This can help promote cross-pollination of learning, leading to more creative solutions. Working with diverse populations can also help ensure representation of the voices of the marginalized. For example, adolescents with disabilities, adolescents from communities affected by forced displacement, and adolescents from areas disproportionately affected by climate change. Fourth, researchers can play a key role in assessing the success of policies and programs aimed at addressing the challenges that adolescents face and helping to promote adolescent resilience. Specifically unpacking, do these programs work, for whom, and how? Ultimately, I think the academic and research constituency can play a key role in providing the underlying data to support evidence-based policy solutions to tackle the challenges that adolescents face globally. This is going to be essential to ensuring a post-pandemic future that is responsive to the needs of young people and reactive to a rapidly changing world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And one of the key asks of the call to action for adolescents is a global summit for adolescents. Sonia, can you draw on your experience from the last 2 years, particularly representing the UN agencies, and tell us why this Global Summit for Adolescence is critical for building back better?
Thank you so much for the question, Kimberly, and good day, everybody. A pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, Kimberly, I am here on behalf of the Regional Interagency Movement, Every Woman, Every Child. We also refer to it as IAAH. And the partners, PAHO, UNICEF, UNFPA, UNAIDS, UN Women, World Bank, and IADB, and USAID work together to support implementation of the global strategy for women's, children's, and adolescent health in the region of the Americas, and to promote health equity for women, children, and adolescents. To respond to your question, I believe that all of us, global and regional partners, governments, NGOs, advocates, youth networks, youth leaders, we all want the same. We want all our adolescents to thrive. However, as was debated many times during this Congress, and as you mentioned also in your introduction, progress has been limited and many challenges remain. And we don't have that many years left until we reach 2030. Now, I believe that the Global Summit will provide an opportunity for all of us to jointly identify and agree and especially commit to priorities and strategies to address these priorities. The summit will provide an opportunity to, as a young person might say, to get our act together, to harmonize our efforts, and to increase investment to achieve the sustainable development goals for all adolescents and youth. Regarding the second part of your question, how can we build momentum towards the Global Summit planned for 2023? I believe that this is a shared responsibility. The momentum should not only be built on global level and not even only on regional level. The momentum should be built on national level and even subnational level. We want everybody to get excited about this mission we share to improve the lives and health and well-being of our young people. So it will be important that when we try to build this momentum, that we develop a plan. And I would suggest that in every region, the regional partners get together and develop a plan how we are going to sustain this momentum and this interest in the summit as a unique opportunity for us to put our money where our mouth is when we say that young people are at the center of development. And so I think that if we have networks such as the IAAH movement that I just mentioned, it's a very good place to start for us as organizations to put all our efforts together to work towards this goal. Youth engagement will be critical. It always is. But in this case, young people have this unique ability to use social media, to use social platforms to build momentum. And so this partnership between partners, regional, global partners, and young people and advocates will be critical for us to arrive at a summit where everybody is not only interested, but committed to the results. And so I, for one, am already excited. And from PAHO, we will certainly do what we can to contribute to building this momentum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. It is clear that the UN has been very supportive of the call to action for adolescents, working alongside PMNCH to ensure that young people have the resources and supports to make their voices heard. Now, we'll watch a video from UNFPA Executive Director, Natalie Kanem, with a video. Let's claim the world young people deserve.
I've watched you, the young people of the world, in action around the globe. on the front lines of the fight to end child marriage in India, opening new conversations on sex education in Guatemala, demanding your sexual and reproductive rights in Mozambique. Everywhere in the world, you help make mental health the priority issue it must be. You are building peace in your communities, and you're transforming gender power dynamics to build peace in the home. We all have much to learn from you, and at the same time, I know you worry about the present and your future. You are leading the way on concerns about climate change and about the job market, especially in the wake of COVID-19. And more than any generation before, you know you have the right to make choices about your own body and your own life. Yet, it's true that you cannot always realize your rights, and that's not fair. And it can be very discouraging. Know that we at UNFPA stand with you. So many of you have told me that we have to live differently on our shared planet, and that we must guarantee human rights and gender equality for each person, no matter who or where they are. UNFPA pledges to do everything we can to act with you on the challenges you face, to meet your demands for justice. Let's embrace hope and dream big. Let's claim that world you imagine and you deserve.
It is clear that young people have the agency and rights to lead the change we wish to see. Maziko, in the age of social media, we have seen young people use digital and social media as an integral medium of engaging with issues that impact them most. I understand you have a special announcement to make. Can you tell us more about the hashtag Adolescence 2030 campaign and how it helps to advocate for adolescent well-being? And where do you see young people needing support?
Thank you so much, Kimberly. And earlier when you were greeting everybody, I was so tempted to say Wagwan, so Wagwan. So the Adolescence 2030 is a social media campaign about adolescent well-being, and it's actually driven by the Call to Action for Adolescents. So you will agree with me that even before COVID-19, adolescents and young adults faced multiple and intersecting challenges to their well-being. The global community has paid insufficient attention to the multidimensional and intersectional nature of adolescent well-being and the importance of their transition to adulthood. What is unique about well-being, like David had mentioned, is that it goes beyond the health sector. And what's important about this campaign is that it empowers young people and adolescents to raise the visibility of well-being in their community through sharing their personal stories, but also making recommendations to the governments as well as partners to make sure that they help us address all the challenges that we face. And I just also wanted to just add a personal note that I'm always talking about. Earlier we heard that adolescents make the largest world population. There's so many statistics that we hear that sort of make it seem like, adolescents are inanimate objects. But what I really love about this campaign is that it humanizes adolescents. It really makes it personal to really understand the multidimensional and the multifaceted issues that adolescents face. So the campaign encourages young people like yourself and myself and other young people who are in this session currently to use social media to amplify those stories and those personal stories. And so I'm inviting everybody to join this campaign and also calling allies as well to show their support on the importance of well-being and what it means to adolescents all over the world. So allies can be parents, teachers, healthcare providers, advocates, academics, researchers, policymakers. Please join us. The campaign will launch on Monday, 29th November, beginning Monday, 29th November, and will continue throughout Friday, the 2nd of December. But then we will also carry it forward at key events during the couple of years to just build momentum towards the UN SDGs So I've obviously been to support adolescents and young people to raise visibility on issues that.
Yeah, sorry, I think that there's something wrong with Masiko's connection, so I can jump
Yes,
in. And yeah, so
David.
Masiko gave us most of the background of the campaign. But as you can see here, we are really targeting young people, adolescents themselves, and also allies, as Masiko was saying. So we do encourage everyone to join the campaign, as she just said. And you can see here that we have also developed some social media materials for participants to actually participate here. And once the campaign goes live, you will be able to access them. But as you can see on my screen, we have several templates that young people and allies can use for the campaign. They have been translated into two languages. We have them in English, French, and also Spanish. I'm very happy to have Spanish because it's important to include people from Latin America as well. So you can see them all here. And the basic question for the campaign is, what does well-being mean to you? And we're keeping it very simple, but at the same time, it's very powerful because, as we said before, well-being goes way beyond health. And I'm sure that that we will be getting many strong feedback and graphics and content from you. So do please engage and and look out for this announcement once it is ready. Thank you very much, Kimberly.
Thank you, David, and thank you to Masiko as well, despite the technical challenges. That was an inspiring conversation, and I hope we'll all join the campaign on November 29 with our hashtag Adolescence 2030. Before closing the panel, we're going to do a rapid fire session. So I want each panelist to tell us in a few words what is needed to move this agenda forward. You have 1 minute each. And David, we can start with you, followed by Stephanie, Sarah, Sonia, and Masiko.
Sure, Kimberly, thank you very much. I think that from my side, I always say like a broken record, but I would say funding. We need financing for adolescents' health and well-being, but we need strategic financing as well. We need a strategic guidance on how actually to use unfortunately, the resources are limited, so we have to be mindful of this. But at the same time, we have to be also very strategic on how we use these resources and making sure that we're taking an equity approach, we're taking a rights-based approach, and making sure that we're actually reaching adolescents at the country level, and it's not only empty promises that we're making at the global level, and actually people are benefiting from the work that we do. That's it from my side.
Okay, that was great, concise. I'll try to be quick. So two pieces, I think, also in the sort of equity and inclusion theme. So equity has been a huge theme at the center of what the Biden-Harris administration is trying to accomplish in the US and around the world. And of course, we could have a long conversation about how we design programs that are equitable, how we measure the outcomes of programs. But I also want to note that we're thinking about equity in terms of partnerships and how we engage partners in a way that really provides an opportunity to change course based on what we hear from partners. So not just for the purposes of transparency, which is important, but also to really learn from our partners, including the communities that our programs are reaching, and make sure that we are changing course when we need to change course. And the second piece that I just want to be explicit about is that when we talk about equity and inclusion, we mean everyone, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, disability status, age, racial, ethnic group, geographic location, all of these factors. It's important to be very clear that that's what we mean. I also mean inclusion of broad services, including sexual and reproductive health services. We cannot pick and choose which of these areas of adolescents' lives we're addressing because they are all related to their success. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie and David. So I'm basically going to repeat David's point because I completely agree that funding is a key piece of the puzzle, and we need funding commitments that specifically target adolescents as a unique demographic group, as opposed to sort of lumping them with everyone else. My sense is currently, perhaps with the exception of school-based programs, adolescents are often ignored when thinking of health investments unless they fit a very specific criteria, such as an adolescent mother or something else. Sort of as an academic and a researcher, I think we do have a role to play here by sort of disaggregating research findings by age and advocating for more adolescent-specific data collection by governments and donors. When you look at the indicators that exist, it is amazingly difficult to find adolescent-specific indicators, which makes it very hard to put policy behind it. So I think that by using data to highlight the specific needs of adolescents, that's one way to help ensure policy solutions that are tailored towards adolescents and then try and attract funding commitments specifically targeted at them. So I think we need to figure out a way to get funding specifically focused on adolescents. That, as both Stephanie and David said, is sort of inclusive of everyone. So thank you.
I think it's my turn.
Yes, Sonia.
Fully agree with the previous speakers, but I want to add one thing. In the global strategy, there are three keywords: survive, thrive, transform. And I feel like we still have an environment that is hostile, that is not friendly, that is not facilitating to the full development of young people. And so to me, an issue that is really important is that we keep mobilizing political will to transform laws, practices in the health system, in the social sector, in education, that facilitate young people's development and their empowerment. So I would like to add that to the mix. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and Maziko, your final words?
Okay, apologies everyone. I think I'm having some network problems, but I just wanted to highlight the three asks. So number one, obviously engaging and empowering adolescents, and number two, going beyond the health sector, and number three, strengthening political commitment and funding. So those are my last words.
Thank you, Maziko. And thank you everyone for your insights today. Before we close though, I would like to invite the Right Honorable Helen Clark, PMNCH Board Chair and the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, to speak. She's a champion for adolescent health, and earlier in this session received the Honorary IAAH Fellowship on behalf of PMNCH. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thanks everyone for taking part in this great session, and really pleased that PMNCH has been able to be a co-sponsor of it. And just coming in from what Sonia said, it's absolutely true. Many countries are not particularly open to the views of young people, rather favouring the views of older generations when considering decisions and policy. And yet when you look at the proportion of adolescents and youth in the populations of so many countries today, you ignore upcoming generations at your peril as a policymaker. So that's a point we need to keep hammering as we talk about the importance of hearing and engaging with adolescent voices loud and clear. So what could we take away from today's event? I think three important messages resonating with me. The overriding importance of engaging with adolescents and ensuring that they have the opportunities and the tools they need to assume leadership roles. What does that mean in practice? Well, it needs that change of mindset by members of older generations. We should stop seeing young people merely as beneficiaries of what we do and instead see them as equal and valued partners. And that means engaging them fully in policy and program processes affecting them, making room for adolescents and youth to take the lead, have their voices heard, and hold national systems and leaders to account. And all national and international platforms need to enable that in inclusive ways. Second, we need to recognise that ensuring adolescent health and well-being is a job for everyone in society, not just the health sector. And powerful multi-sectoral responses are needed to address all domains of adolescent well-being. Third, let's make sure that adolescent health and well-being can be a big focus of the SDG Summit in 2023. and that will need political commitment and funding. Maziko told you about the campaign being launched next Monday, a hashtag Adolescence 2030 social media campaign led by young people for young people, aiming to mobilize youth around the world to share their stories and motivations for improving adolescent health and well-being. So please take part next Monday with the launch. I'm very active on social media, so copy me in, and that keeps it high on my radar to tweet and retweet as well. Tell us what matters to you as young people, because the effort and input is just so vital. The era of the SDGs began in 2015, so 2023 is pretty much midway, and I think a lot hangs on this summit and raising the visibility for adolescents and young people. And if organisations on this event today haven't yet endorsed PMNCH's call for action to adolescents, please go to www.adolescence2030.org to learn more about it. So thanks to all who've participated in the event, and on behalf of PMNCH, we really look forward to continuing this work with you all in the years ahead. Muchas gracias, and thank you.
Thank you, Helen, for sharing such inspiring words. Now we will return to IAAH President Susan Sawyer to close the Congress.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Helen, and thank you to all of our speakers in this closing session that I must say feels, as Michelle Farmer put in the chat, it feels much more like an opening, doesn't it, in terms of a call to action and to moving forward rather than a closing. You know, it's interesting reflecting on the last few days. I started this meeting in my opening address talking about the 3 C's of COVID, climate and conflict in terms of meeting the challenge of global change. But I think as we've experienced across this meeting, I'd have a 4th C, which is connectivity. The need of connectivity across the generations, of young people's, connecting with young people's leadership capabilities, connecting with each other, as we've demonstrated here, and the challenge of doing that virtually in a meeting like this. And the whole time of this meeting, whilst on one hand, I've been celebrating that we have still been able to connect and to meet in this way and to share with each other. On the other hand, that notion of connecting in person and what happens from that, I think, as Stephanie said in the comment, you know, we really do know the power of connecting as individuals. But we have made this meeting work. I also tweeted at the start of this meeting that it might take a village to raise an adolescent, but it takes 10 villages to run a virtual Congress. So muchas gracias to everyone involved in this meeting, to John and Mary Carmen, who have been our scientific co-chairs, you know, huge input into this meeting in absolutely every way, to our co-hosts, SBAG and Oris Conho, thank you so much. To our sponsors, again, this would not have happened without you, particularly to those within the UN agencies who have been so supportive of our meeting, those of you in WHO, PAHO, UNICEF and UNFPA, we're hugely grateful to you all. We have, but I suppose there's also, I would really like to acknowledge also the entirety of our IAAH Council, and in particular to thank our Executive Administrator, Jenna Baumgartner. Those of you who know Jenna know that she is a very much someone who avoids the limelight if she possibly can, but has been very, very present in the lead up to this meeting and during the meeting itself. And if there is a single person who we could not have done without Jenna, my heart goes out to you. Thank you. I do want to bring attention, those of you who are members of IAAH will know that our call for nominations for our new council are now closed, and we, after this meeting, Jenna will be not resting, but we'll be putting out the election slate for those regions where we will be having elections. And we will be announcing those at our annual general meeting in December. So for those of you who would like to join IAAH and to get a peek preview at who the incoming president and the incoming council will be, the annual general meeting is an opportunity to thank the council that's been in action over the past 4 years, but also to celebrate and transition to a new council. I mentioned earlier, we're transitioning to fresh leadership within the Young Professionals Network as well, and really want to invite any of the younger folk within about 10 years of students, early career professionals and trainees to also join the Young Professionals Network. But look, I think I would just like to close again by giving a shout out to my 2 scientific co-chairs, John, Mary, Carmen, and to recognise perhaps in Natalia Kanem's words that we have to live differently and act differently and dream big. The hashtag Adolescence 2030, I think, is an important opportunity ahead of us. We are midway through the SDGs. We are needing to achieve new investments to advance adolescents' health and well-being in every country and for all young people in every country. This is a huge agenda. I don't think we should underestimate the importance of this agenda, but the scale of this agenda as well. Political goodwill, collaborations are needed more than ever before. So we all have a bit to play with this. You know, in your country, in your context, what you can do, but all of us can do more. So live differently, act differently, dream big. Thank you to all of you.
Everybody, please undo your cameras so that we can see you and take some pictures. And Mary Carmen, you have the last word. Thank you so much, Dr. Sawyer, for all of your support.
Bueno, voy a hablar en castellano. Espero que esté el intérprete. Muchas gracias por la excelente sesión y por este llamado a ponernos en acción. Y muchas gracias desde la Sociedad Peruana de Adolescencia y Juventud, a IAAH en Susan, por haber permitido que mi sueño se vuelva realidad. Yo quería que el Congreso Mundial viniera a Latinoamérica y lo hicimos. Virtualmente, pero lo hicimos. También quiero agradecer a Jenna, que ha sido digamos, nos ha apoyado un montón, y a todo el Consejo. Un agradecimiento especial a todo el staff del Organismo Andino de Salud, Convenio Hipólito Unanue, Horas Cono, que ha colaborado en todo momento. A los auspiciadores, que no me voy a acordar de todos seguramente, pero no quiero olvidarme, AstraZeneca, UNICEF, FOS Feminista, PAJO, UFPA, AMACE, SAM, ALAPE, CODAJIC, Impares, The Partnership, y todos, CODAJIC y ALAPE. Y también quiero agradecer de una manera muy especial a todos los moderadores y todos los panelistas, y de manera muy especial a todos los que nos han acompañado estos 4 días. Ha sido un congreso largo, pero realmente hemos estado muy contentos porque hemos tenido a gente maravillosa y hemos tenido mucha juventud, que es lo que más queríamos. Solo termino diciendo que la juventud es una militancia, la adolescencia es una militancia. Quienes trabajamos tantos años en esto, creemos en estos adolescentes. Creemos que estos adolescentes van a construir un mundo mejor. Así que solo a los adultos nos toca acompañarlos para que hagan realidad sus sueños. Muchas gracias. Los esperamos el próximo año en Perú para celebrar los 25 años de la Sociedad Peruana de Adolescencia y Juventud. Nos vemos pronto. Gracias.
Viajando y gozando. Gracias a todos por ver este video. Lo hemos hecho con mucho cariño para ustedes. No se olviden de seguir las medidas de seguridad. Lávense bien las manos y cuídense mucho. Miles de peruanos nos están esperando.
Muy pronto vamos a poder recorrer nuestra tierra. Por eso cuando salgas, cuando viajes, no dejes de usar tu mascarilla. Así cuidaremos también a los demás. Nos vemos pronto.
Hola, hola queridos amigos. Muy pronto viviremos el reencuentro más lindo con nuestra tierra, con nuestra gente buena, siempre con seguridad, manteniendo la distancia de al menos 1 metro en todo momento. ¡Los queremos!